go.
Hey everyone, my name is Jason Jaworska, and I'm the product director for CI/CD here at GitLab. And this is our group conversation. Valmir, it looks like you have the first question. I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thanks, Jason. So my question is on slide 3, we have the strategic themes. One of them is to do powerful things easy. And I'm wondering if we have something in the sense of creating CI/CD pipelines through the graphical user interface.
Yeah, so I linked to an issue here in the agenda, and there's another one that's kind of related. It's not scheduled right now, and there's a couple of reasons for that I wanted to share. One is that so this is a cool feature, and it's really nice for onboarding because it helps people get up and running quickly for sure. But one of the things in terms of investing in a feature like this is that they're often complicated and require a decent amount of work to keep running and work well. And then the power users tend to just kind of move off of it very quickly, and they're just like, just let me edit the YAML. So it's not to say that we will never do this, or even that we won't do it soon, especially with a team focused on onboarding and that experience. We've got both the growth team and within CI/CD, we're focusing on onboarding and making that smooth. But that's the reason probably why that we haven't prioritized it compared to some other things in the past. So it was actually nice to see it again, and you reminded me of it. And I knew that it's out there. So yeah, it's definitely something that we're looking at, but it just hasn't been the highest priority for us so far. Some of the other things that we've been focusing on are recently are the kind of new base, I guess you could call them pipeline architectures, what we're calling them in documentation. So we've come up with the DAG, we've got child parent pipelines, and then the other one is dynamic child parent pipelines, which will be coming out in our next release. And those are kind of 3 really distinct ways of doing pipelines, and getting those out, maturing them a little bit, and then maybe adding an editor is maybe the right time to do that. So is where I'm at in my head right now.
Thanks a lot. I will be following the issues.
Great. I appreciate the ping as always. And then I'll read the next one from Sid, which is, when is the new package format planned for? There was 2 ways that I could interpret this question. Sid is away, is why he asked to read it. One is, when are we delivering a new package format? And we just delivered NuGet, which is a primarily Windows-based package manager that we just launched in our 12.8 release, which was out just a few days ago. The other way that I could interpret this question that I think is maybe the one he's actually asking is, one of the things that we want to do with package is abstract or simplify away package management to the point where there's just kind of a set of 5 or 6 API endpoints or something that you can implement, and then anybody can pretty easily contribute any package management system. So if you're using something kind of obscure, or if you're just using something that we haven't gotten to yet, if you follow this page, if you submit an MR that implements these 5 or 6 things that we've documented very clearly, then you can contribute that, and it will work great, and it will just be as integrated as nicely as all the other package managers. And I want to pause here and ask if we have Tim on the call who can give more details about where we're at. I can't remember if he said he was able to make it or not.
I'm here.
Okay, great. Yeah, Tim, could you give us an update on where we are with that effort and when we might see a kind of 1.0 version of that?
Yeah, well, I should just rewind and say we're also working right now on PyPI integration. That's sort of the next format that's upcoming, that's been requested by a lot of our customers and users. It's a fairly popular issue, and we're planning on delivering, we're doing an investigation right now and then planning on delivering support in 12.10 and 12.11 over the next 2 milestones for that. But separately on sort of driving more contributions, we've been having community office hours. We've got 2 contributions in progress now for adding support, and we've been continuing to improve the how to contribute development documentation. The next piece of that is, how do we abstract away some of that and make a more just, I'll call it a universal package manager. And we're starting to move forward with that vision in terms of setting up remote and virtual repositories. So we're doing, and that includes basically the work around the dependency proxy, making it so that we can have packages in multiple formats from multiple locations that are all available for, and cached and proxied for faster and more reliable builds.
Cool. Thanks, Tim. Then we'll move on to the next question, unless anybody has any follow-ups on that one, which is from Edmund. Would you like to verbalize your question?
Yep, thank you. So on slide 5, there's a reference to overestimated SMAU. I'm familiar with SMAU, but it's my first time seeing the overestimated prefix to that. Would you help me understand what that means?
Yeah, the last I heard, this was still the case, but what that means is that using the data for SMAU, we are definitely overcounting the number of people because there's kind of duplicate data sources. There's not duplicate, but there's disaggregation of instances, and we're kind of estimating users based on kind of abstract things. And so that's what we mean by overestimated SMAU. It means that the number is larger than the actual number, but it should trend towards the actual values. So relatively, it's good for comparison, and kind of maybe directionally, it's good, but the number will be higher. If there's anybody from the data team on who wanted to give a more insightful answer than that, that would be welcome too. But that's my understanding of it.
Thank you.
Jason, I'll add just one data point that I know about why we decided to call it overestimated was that typically your usage ping data is at the instance level. So it'll say, you know, there were this many interactions with this part of the product, but we don't know that at the user level. So we just multiply the number of users on that instance by the fact that the instance had the activity happening. So automatically, not every user did that.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Kenny. And you actually have the next question, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, great presentation, thank you. The slide 9 refers to moving continuous delivery to lovable, which I think is the first time we've ever moved an existing category that wasn't lovable to lovable. So super cool to see that. I just wonder if you could talk through like how we came up with the plan to make it lovable and maybe what that entails in your mind.
Yeah, I think continuous integration is lovable already, and perhaps pages. I'm not 100% sure on that. Yeah, so I linked below to where the maturity plan is, which has collected the issues that that we think are, or that Orit thinks are the ones that are the most necessary for that. We're sort of iterating on this this process. A while ago, we didn't used to even have the, you know, what is the plan section. We now have that list of issues, but we don't really have a narrative that ties them together, at least that I'm aware of. Orit may have one in an epic or something, but either way, it should be linked there. I can speak in a general sense on my own kind of narratively about where I see that category moving to and from. But yeah, it isn't documented currently, as best I know.
Okay. I know that there was like we competed in the CDRA and other. I imagine the feedback. Some of the feedback comes from feedback we've gotten from analysts there.
Yeah, yeah, and we do well in those categories, or we've always improved. Maybe is another way to put it. We also haven't. So I know that there's an effort to base maturity on some new metrics like NPS or something else. I don't know if we've made a decision there or if that's still being discussed. But we haven't pinned that category yet to a new kind of like objective analyst or other measure.
Gotcha. Cool.
For us though, like to just kind of speak to the category and where we're headed with it, what we want to do with the CD category overall is going to be a lot of building, I think, on auto DevOps and adding non-Kubernetes stuff to auto DevOps. Orit has I don't know if you call it a POC or just kind of an iteration that we're working on right now, where she's looking to add a composable template for ECS, that if you have ECS configuration in your secret variables, if you have, again, I can't remember if it's called the manifest or whatever, that the AWS expects when you're deploying to ECS, that we will auto detect the presence of those things. And then just like we do for Kubernetes, we will run a whole different set of deploy tasks and implement incremental rollout or whatever else that we can. So as we get closer to that vision for CD, then we have started to really achieve something that's at the next level, and I think is really lovable and market leading. The other aspect that plays into this is the overall concept of progressive delivery. And progressive delivery is a broad concept that's, in theory, the next step for continuous delivery. And what the difference is between progressive delivery and continuous delivery is just the amount of control that you have over rolling things out. So review apps, feature flags, and just kind of super fine-grained control integrated with monitoring, and just slowly staging things out in a very safe way that you don't impact anybody that you don't expect. Wiring that all together, it touches quite a number of different categories, many of them in release, but some of them in your area related to monitoring, and of course auto DevOps as well. And wiring all that together is kind of the place where the rubber hits the road, is in the continuous delivery category. So that's a part of it as well. And that's, I guess, how I would describe the overall vision of where we're heading for a lovable version of continuous delivery.
Cool, thank you.
And who's next? Looks like Mac.
Hey, Jason. Yeah, I want to give a kudos to this section, especially the testing group. We've had a very effective internal stakeholder use case review meeting, and I think it is one of the areas that we are doing the most effective dogfooding, at least in the quality department, with proactive dogfooding. So a huge shout out to that. I think we're going to be replicating this pattern in the rest of the sections as well, with I think maybe dev with analytics to start with. So yeah, great work, and thank you, James, for leading this effort as well. We're looking to expand that into all the areas in CI/CD as well.
That's so great to hear. We're really trying to make a focus on dogfooding across the board, and make sure that we're auditing our features to see who's using them, and that we're using them internally, and that we're not blocked anywhere. So that's really great to hear, and we'll look to replicate that approach if it's worked so well within the testing group. And yeah, thank you, James. I'll say the same thing. Brandon, over to you.
Morning. I didn't quite type as fast as I was going to ask the question, so I'll finish typing after I ask the question. So love what we're doing in CD. I guess kind of the question a little bit is, when we look at visualization, when I look at the visualization and the way that we surface it, it's surfaced very much in stream, which obviously makes sense. That's what our value proposition is okay, it's the next step. And CD in some ways is like, hey, we're rolling it out, but almost made, we make it as simple as possible, which generally I totally agree with. Wondering though, kind of if you flip it to a CD strategy, there's a whole bunch of operations teams that will be looking at, and they won't touch the CI, but once it goes through CI and it hits that CD stage, they're going to want to see all the progressive, detailed progressive rollouts. And it feels like we have the right features, but maybe we're not surfacing them in a way that user is used to or would expect it. So it's like, it's feature rich, but maybe not as obvious to that end user. And I'm not sure if I'm articulating it right. I don't know if that's something you all have seen.
No,
I'm curious how you all thinking
understand
through
what
it.
you mean.
Yeah.
Maybe I can give an example, and you can let me know if I've understood it. So one of the things that we're looking at doing next on feature flags is having that feature flag status information be tied into the issues, and then in the environments as well, so that there would be a view. If you're the kind of person who's maybe a tester and are interested in like what's deployed to my environment right now and what are the configuration settings, if you go to the environment, you'll see an overview there of all the feature flags that environment has and what the current state of them is. And then if you go to an issue, if you're a developer working on an issue, there'll be something on the sidebar that's like, here are the feature flags that we introduced as part of this particular issue, and here's a list of all the environments and what they're turned on or off in those places. So
Yes.
we are headed there, and we're doing the exact same thing with releases, and making like what releases in this environment, what release is related to this issue, what milestones are related to this release, and just wiring everything together. It's all a bit nascent right now. Releases is probably the furthest along in actually delivering some of that stuff, where you can, like from a release, you can go look at a milestone that was part of it and see the burn down chart that was related to it. Another really cool feature that we're pushing forward in this direction is in this release, we will be able to auto-generate a changelog from the from the MRs or from the commits that can be attached automatically to the release itself, and that kind of will come from the application at large. And maybe hopefully we're looking into dogfooding that, so that part of the release post process that we have could potentially be auto-generated in that same way. And then we're using our own feature, we're improving it. It's a win-win. So I think a lot of these things are coming, but that said, it would be great, not knowing what we're working on, to hear what you think we should work on, because maybe it's matched and maybe it's not.
No, I think those are kind of exactly the that's some really good examples, and thank you for highlighting those. Those are there, and I'll keep working on finding users that have that as a use case.
Yeah.
And then we'll work to find be able to do demos with them and stuff just to get that feedback. But yes, I think that's a whole new group of users that looks at the release process again in just a very different way than we do. So that's great to see. Really encouraged. Be happy to see those, and I'll help any way I can on the dog fooding and finding
Cool.
people.
Yeah, thank you. And it's such a huge differentiator for us. It's really natural to want to go work on that stuff because there's no other solutions on the market, or very few that are able to have access to issues and the commits. And like, we just know everything about software development at companies. And so we're able to tie that together in really, really cool ways. Yeah. There aren't any other questions in the agenda. Would anybody else like to just kind of ask any questions off the cuff? All right, well, hopefully this was valuable. Thanks everybody for your time and the really interesting questions. And yeah, till next time.